And we're live with Todd Kleppin from Forge Youth Mentoring. Todd, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, Tyler, thanks for having me aboard, and hello to everybody.
Yeah, so we were planning for Todd to join us at one of our Sunday worship gatherings back before everything went the way it did with the virus and the pandemic and everything. And so we're excited to have you with us to get a message out there about what you guys are doing with Forge. I love your work and everything. And so let's get into this. I'm going to take 1 sec to double check that we're getting through on our stream. As our folks know, this is something that we've been doing new. So I want to make sure this is working right before we get too far down the road. Oh, I think we're there. Okay. So Todd, just kind of tell us a little bit about Forge Youth Mentoring, what led you to this important work.
Right. Forge Youth Mentoring is simply a faith-based mentoring program where we partner with churches in our communities and that to help the people in the building there to get out and serve kids in the community and make a difference, not just in helping the kids to really develop into great, strong adults, but also to share our faith with kids and families as we do that. And I got into this. I was a youth pastor for 17 years. The last 5 years of that in Richland, Washington. I'm here in the Tri-Cities, is kind of where our home base is. And in Richland, had this crazy opportunity of actually teaming up with the city to build a skate park in our literal back, parking lot or property of our church. And through that, it just developed so many things. But I noticed right away as I was then going to the park and just encouraging kids, you go out there any day and there's 100 kids and 0 adults. And I mean, it kind of hit me pretty hard because as someone who played sports growing up, you always look in the stands and there's plenty of people there that, older adults of different ages, whether they're your parents or grandparents or friends or family or teachers or whatever. But here's an environment where I got 100 kids that are out there skateboarding and 0 people are there to encourage them, 0 adults. And so that really kind of started me down a path where God just said, hey, you need to go this route. And so I started a mentoring program, stepped out of that after about 7 years, went to work for a national Christian mentoring program for a couple of years. And through that work, really launched Forge. Felt like this is something that we can develop in communities everywhere. And that's what got in there. So it's been a fun ride just to see. I have a heart for kids and I have a heart for seeing, actually the other part of it, I have a heart for kids, but I also have a heart for encouraging our adult community to not quit. And, I love, 70 and 80-year-old adults that I work with all the time saying, I tell them, if you're not dead, you're not done. So God's got a reason you're still here. And I love matching people of all ages with kids and seeing the cool things God does.
Yeah, no, I love that. And one of the things that we often talk about is that, students don't really care about your age. Like what they want to know is that you care about them. And if you're the oldest person in the room that you can show that you care about students, they'll latch onto that and they'll show up for that because that's what we need. So what does a mentor or a mentee involved in your program? What does that kind of look like? What's the experience like?
Right.
Obviously, last few months has probably been pretty different, but typically, what does that look like? Yeah,
no, it's simple. I mean, just because like what you're hitting in youth ministry, I carry the same heart of youth ministry into this program. It's all about relationships. That's the whole point. That's all our point of our existence. That's why behind me you see this created to connect image, because that's it. And so what mentors do is we get them trained. We give them all the information so they feel confident in themselves and realize they have a lot of skills and understanding that can be used to help these kids. And then they just go do fun things with the kids. So one mentor is matched with one kid, same gender. You have common interests. We find a kid who's got, whether you like fishing or hiking or gardening or sewing or whatever it is, we find a kid who's got those same interests. And then we match you up, and then you guys meet once a week, for about an hour, maybe a little bit more, doing that stuff together. And you just build relationship. And it's not, like I said, it's just not complicated, and it makes an incredible difference. And so, and we'll talk more about that too, the difference that it makes. But it's a simple deal. You just get to spend time with kids, and the cool thing about it is you get to have fun. I mean, you do what you love doing with a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were talking about this a little bit before when we got on about just how important, those kind of mentors for me, those coach mentorship relationships have been transformational for my life. So how Todd, would you describe the importance of intergenerational relationships, of that mentor relationships? And what do you think that young people and our communities miss out on when we fail to take advantage of those opportunities?
Yeah. Man, that is the money question right there. I mean, if we all get serious and we get real with ourselves, we look back and say, who impacted us growing up? What adults came in and made some kind of impact? I mean, we can name numerous ones, but it starts a lot of times, a lot of us had great parents. Some of us did not. But I had coaches, I had Sunday school teachers, I had neighbors that just took some time to be with me. And poured some kind of life into me, showed me what it meant to be an adult. So then that allowed me to grow and learn in that. So all of us recognize there was importance. And for some people I know I talk to, they'll say, man, I had no one. And to them, they say, I see it more important than ever. I wished I did. I wished I had those adults. So, is mentoring big? They'll say this, and in the studies that are out there, Harvard's, one of the most recent studies on resiliency said the number one difference between a kid who makes it out into a successful life versus the kids who stay stuck into worlds of poverty and worlds of pain. The number one thing is finding one consistent, stable adult. I mean, it's stunning. They can have all these statistics, all these studies are out there, and they'll say that the biggest thing is a kid finds one adult they can cling to. So, in the stats that are out there for how does a mentor make an impact, or how big of an impact do they make? Twice as likely to stay off drugs, twice as likely to stay in school. On and on, these statistics are out there that just are mind-boggling when a kid finds one caring adult that they're consistently hanging out with. So it's a big opportunity, but then the question of what do they miss out on, or what does our community miss out on? Do we recognize that 75 to 85% of our city's budgets are for the justice system, of which a lot of that is the juvenile justice system? So, if we all just say, how about our pocketbooks? If we actually, if we connected with kids, we would pay less taxes. Well, most likely. But, we help those kids, and we save them from making some choices that just, destroy their futures maybe, or just desperately, hurt them. And it hurts them, it hurts their families, and it does hurt our community when kids are out there making bad choices. Kids who are, girls who are getting pregnant, and kids who are joining gangs, and even just skipping school. I mean, how big is that to affect their future when we don't, follow through with these things? So the opportunity is there, and it really is sad to see how we've become a community, and all of our communities here around this nation have become ones who are very disconnected generationally. Yeah. And so, therefore, we're seeing the results. If we don't like what the world is looking like today, it's really because we aren't connecting like maybe we as adults were connected 30, 40 years ago to the adults around us. So it's a big thing.
Yeah. And I think the statistic you shared, maybe like the hopeful side of that, is that it doesn't take some massive like program rollout, like one person could be the difference for one kid.
Yeah, you're right, man. And I interrupt you there just because it's literally cheering me up a bit here, because too many times we adults don't think we can make a difference. And I look at especially like our older generations, who think kids don't want anything to do with me. Guys, I got an 83-year-old right now who is mentoring and is doing a phenomenal job. Mm-hmm. This kid turned to him on the first meeting we had together to start the match. And the kid, who's 11 years old, turns to him and said, my grandfather died last year. And he kind of looks at his mom and kind of, says, can I share? And then he just turns to him and says, he actually committed suicide. He just felt like life wasn't worth living. And he looks at him a second more, and he says, you could be like my grandfather.
Wow.
And, we're sitting here going, who am I? What do I have? I'm not a good enough Christian. I'm not a good enough parent. I wasn't a good enough father, mother, whatever. We have these excuses that Satan's planted in our minds. And God's just sitting there going, man, you have overcome with me. I want you to help a kid overcome.
That's good. That's really
crazy.
Good. Yeah. It makes me think, I think it's maybe Andy Stanley who said this, do for one what you wish you could do for 1,000. So, and I think, What those statistics you're sharing in that story that you share, and I know you have so many others where, one person can make a huge difference. And so with that in mind, how would you say that, because your Forge is a Christian organization, how would you say that the church is uniquely positioned to fill this call, to cultivate these mentorship relationships that can make a lasting impact for young people?
Right. There's a number of parts to this question too. And the first off, I'll just ask you the question, everyone. What other organization in our country is multi-generational? Back 30 and 40 years ago, we had all kinds of clubs that did include many generations regularly, and they all played a part. The church is really the only one. We have many, many generations that get together in the same setting every week. We have the mentality, as we see throughout Scripture, that we are to pass things on from generation to generation. The choices we make will affect those to come in years to come. So we have this position where we've seen ourselves. And so we can, even as we invite kids into our settings, we invite them into a multi-generational setting that's going to help them find their belonging, find their place, and learn what it's like to become a successful person and to become a joyful and peaceful person as Christians. So we have that opportunity as a multi-generational setting. What's funny about that is there's a study called Hardwired to Connect, really amazing, came out in the early 2000s. And what they said was that we are seeing these enormous problems in our young culture, young generations, because of their lack of two things. One is connection to other people in multi-generational settings. So there they are saying, wow, church, you're the only group out there really that does this. You have a great opportunity. Then the second thing they said in the study was they are disconnected to deep moral and spiritual meaning. So that was what got a hold of my heart early on. And so I launched a program in 2008, and it was shortly after learning that study and just saying, you know what, church, we get to be the front runners in this. No one's doing this. I mean, when I talk to youth serving agencies all around, they all just, if you're over 40, in their minds, you're no good because you can't connect with kids. I see that as a complete lie. And, because I've seen it over and over again, the kids are looking for someone who has experience. They want their peers' love and acceptance. We all do. Every one of us wants the people around us to think we're something special. But kids also recognize that the 40 and 50-year-old has way more life experience that will help them now than their 13-year-old friend. They get that. And so we forget that. I think we forget that that's happening. So kids are looking for that thing. And as Christians, we are told over and over again to serve. We are told over and over again to reach out to the lost generations. And we get to do that then through this thing of forming a relationship. And I think the opportunity is there. Now, here's the last thing I'll say about that part of it. I mean, there's so much more to it. But what is really cool, a group that I've worked with and I was employee of for a while was called the Christian Association of Youth Mentoring. And the model that Forge Youth Mentoring uses is based solely on theirs. I mean, it's a big part of what they've done. And what they do is use a ton of volunteers like we do. So we use volunteers to help run our program. And all of our mentors come from the Christian community. And in doing that, what you're seeing is an amazing number of mentors completing their commitment and going beyond their commitment. So around the country, outside of Christian mentoring, 45% of mentors are quitting before the year is done, which is proven to damage the kids way more than if they had never started to begin with.
Yeah.
But in these Christian communities, the way we've done this mentoring, this model is showing that well over 95% of the mentors are staying through the first year of commitment and years ahead because they're loving it. And they also, we as Christians, we know this kid's soul is in the balance. So I'm not just serving to be a good person. I'm serving because I want this kid to know the Jesus I follow. Yeah. So the Christians, again, I mean, I've talked to the top researchers in America on mentoring. And I told them those numbers and it blew their minds. And I was with them for about a week and they kept coming up to me, okay, what's your secret sauce? And like them like the rest of the world don't quite understand that when Jesus is in us, we just live differently and we look differently. And so that's the cool thing about being a mentor as a Christian. Yeah,
that's so true. What a testament to the faithfulness of the church, that they would be seen as the ones that are connected. And I think a lot of people are seeing the divides between maybe the values of the church and the values of the world. They feel like they're not commonly reflected. But I feel like one thing we can all agree on is we care about the future of our kids.
Yeah.
And what a wonderful way for the church to be seen in the community and to have a positive representation of the difference that Jesus can make in their life. Like, that's phenomenal.
It's fun because we work with the school districts, we work with all the counseling agencies in Yakima and our other communities that we're a part of. And, none of them are upset that we're faith-based. In fact, a lot of them kind of come alongside, especially maybe not in public, but, and separately talk to me and say, I'm really excited you guys are doing that. And so it's cool to be the example of the community that we as the church are getting involved in the biggest problem that our country is facing.
Yeah. And that's where we should be. We've said it here before that, if you're following Jesus, that should lead you to some of the world's deepest hurts and where the greatest lack is. And man, oh man, this is it, man. This is good stuff.
Yeah.
I love that.
Right.
Todd, what would you say are some obstacles that you've seen that may stand in the way of these relationships forming? What keeps these from happening?
Right. The big challenge is helping the adult world to remember what it's like to be a kid, in a way. So as someone who says, oh, I would like to help a kid, and we have the right heart for that, we need a little bit of training and reminders. Really, the training is reminding us, when we were 13, we probably acted pretty similar to that kid that's really annoying us right now. So we really spend a lot of time making sure the mentors feel comfortable by training them in all these understandings of that. So when we look to get a mentor match going strong, it's about building trust, and that trust comes from us as mentors, as adults, understanding that the kids are coming from a different worldview than us, and we need to recognize the potential biases that they may have and that we may have, and so to address those a bit. And then just, making sure that we come with a heart of empathy, that we recognize our hurts and we're there to help, not to be sympathetic and go, poor you, but to say, wow, this is a tough world you're living in. I want to help. And so we just really try to help the mentors be able to build that trust with the kid and get them going. And why that's really so important is because, again, if we understand where these kids are coming from, they have been let down by a lot of adults. Yeah. And if we get serious about that, and get real again as adults, we recognize, okay, what happens when a leader in our country is commits a crime, or is found guilty of something, the politicians, the athletes, whatever, they get on TV and they go, I'm sorry I offended you. They don't admit they're wrong. They just say, I'm sorry you had a problem with that.
Yeah,
so that's yeah, it's all about PR. But then so many of these kids, like with the fatherlessness issue, that's just massively prevalent. And that's what we kind of focus on, is fatherless kids. Like the Bible tells us, God is a father to the fatherless. These fatherless kids aren't just ones that even, that don't have a dad in the home, but they sometimes just, the parents are disconnected. But anyway, help them understand that if that kid has had 5, quote, dads come in and out of their house over the last 2 years, what are they going to think of another adult? Are you really here for me, or are you just here to get something? And are you committed? So, it's just really cool to help mentors understand that, your consistency of just keep showing up for that kid, even if they don't quite seem interested at first, is because they're just testing, they're wanting to know. And it's like, that's all of our kids. That's not just the troubled kids. And it's understanding that those kids just need to see the adults are genuine, number one, they love, and it's real, and they're just going to be there, even though they make stupid choices like we did at age 10, 12, 14, 16, So, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, in our training with our youth ministry, that's where we start. Like, number one, half the battle is showing up consistently. Yeah. If they expect you to be there for them, don't have them missing you. Right. Yeah, and that's so important. Go ahead.
Let me throw this out real quick, because as you're hitting on that, it made me think of something else that we tell everyone that, okay, what other adult is showing up in that kid's life regularly? Mm-hmm. Think about it, okay, it's mom and dad, if there's mom and dad in the home. So it's maybe not, probably just mom. I mean, because when I looked at the numbers for Yakima recently, and in a couple parts of basically, in Yakima, it's about 50% of kids are born to unwed moms. That's the number. Now, nationally, it's about 40%. Yakima, Pasco, they're closer to that 50 plus mark. Okay, so a lot of those kids are not having that dad in the home. So maybe it's just mom. And then, okay, it's teachers. Well, hey, during COVID, we don't see any of our teachers, maybe a little bit on screen, right? But it's the coaches and teachers too that we used to get influenced by, but now they're having all these rules in the district and in their sports leagues. They can't get personal with these kids because of the fears and things like that. Then it's their parole officer, okay, those are the only people that have been there, their counselors, stuff like that. Every one of them, except for the parent, is paid to be there. The parent's supposed to be there because that's their job. We as a mentor come in just because we love. Man, that changes everything. That kid wants to be around that person that just wants to be around them.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. So let me ask you this. How have you guys kind of shifted tactics a little bit during the pandemic? No doubt you've faced a lot of challenges, but I'm sure for your mentors too, who have developed these relationships with these students, it's got to be incredibly hard to not have that.
Oh man, we are so appreciative of our mentors who have just given their all in this time, because it is a challenge. I mean, because the coolest thing about mentoring is when you're doing stuff together, shoulder to shoulder, that's when questions come up. Even it's driving down the road, it's going out and you're fishing, or you're sitting there working on a project at the table together, and all of a sudden conversations erupt, and they could be anything from dating to drugs to schoolwork to parents, whatever. And so it happens easier when you're together. And so our mentors have had to just spend time with, whether it be FaceTime or Zoom, to make those facial connections, and to then or texting and talking on the phone. But they've just really worked hard to maybe not just do it once a week where they're together an hour, but maybe make it twice a week where they're together for 15 or 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And so they've really worked hard to keep that connection. And I think the coolest part of it, going into it, he said, well, this is just what it is. We can't change the situation. Let's make the most of it. And what I've seen is the parents and the kids are so excited and appreciative of their mentors because they can see they're going that extra mile to make sure they're consistent. So that's cool. But it's been really funny. It's been a learning thing. I have a kid that I mentor, and he's just a little 10-year-old who loves playing video games. And we just got matched before all the COVID hit. And so we only met one time in person. So I was like, oh, this is tough. But what we've ended up doing is we'll play video games on our phone together. So we'll call each other and then we'll join in the same game. And I've learned all about the video games that I don't ever normally play. And so we just have these conversations, and it has led to him asking questions, and we get to talk about things other than, of course, the video game. And so that's what a number of our mentors have done. And then just a few weeks ago, in talking with the governor's office, we were allowed to, they said we could have our mentors start meeting in person. And so we have safety guidelines that if they all feel comfortable, they could do that. So if someone wants to join in the program, they can get together as long as they just follow those guidelines, and they can still be in person if they feel comfortable, or they can continue to meet over the phone, which still does work.
Yeah, that's great. Until this season, I haven't thought too highly of Xbox Live as a ministry tool, but some of our youth leaders have been meeting up there with students and playing with them. So it can work. So, well, man, I'm feeling inspired. So for those who are watching this and want to get involved, where's a good place to start if you're an adult? And if you're a student looking for a mentor but don't know what to do, how do you seek that out?
Right. I mean, you can take a look at a couple things. First, you go to our website and you find the information. You can sign up there, follow the follow the path of how to sign up. It's pretty simple in that, both as a kid or a parent trying to get your kid involved, or as a mentor saying, yeah, I'm interested. And you can click on the boxes of what you're interested in doing. Because some of you may just say, well, I don't know if I want to be a mentor. Could I volunteer for the program? That's a great thing to do as well. We need those. So that's placed. Our Facebook page really is always more up to date with lots of different things there. Videos and some different things that they can see, and they can message us through that as well. And then finally, as another tool that we want to tell people about is our YouTube channel, just Forge Youth Mentoring. Our Facebook page is Forge Youth Mentoring, but they can go to the YouTube page and see some of the testimonies of some of our mentors. Actually, a few that we have up there right now are actually our Spanish-speaking mentors in Mattawa, and so it's fun. You can learn some Spanish, but it's all subtitled. But you can hear some of the stories, just a little bit about what's going on, and hear more about how it works. But my email is todd@forgeyouthmentoring.org. Simple as that. So, but any of those things, you can get a hold of us and find out what's going on. And we'll be hosting, in the weeks to come here, usually twice a month, we're hosting these informational meetings on Zoom, and it's just an hour long, and you learn all about kind of the program, why mentoring works, and how they can get involved, and how God can use them to make a huge difference in a kid's life. So
yeah, and as someone who's attended one of those, I highly recommend it. If you're interested, it's a great place to start to see the good work, and to feel like, I can make a difference here, and to feel confident in that. So yeah, I would definitely recommend, anyone who's watching that feels the pull here, take advantage of this moment. We have in our description the website for Forge Youth Mentoring. We'll be sure to in comments later tag you guys on Facebook, and to link your YouTube account. But yeah, and I would say too, if you have young people in your life that you're connected with, family or something like that, check in on them on this time. Just like everyone else, their world is turned upside down, and they need people that are there for them. So even just start where you're at, see about the relationships that you have, and go from there. But Todd, thanks so much for joining. But before we get off, is there anything else you'd want to leave with the people? Any final words of encouragement?
I just want to ask for you guys' prayers. We've taken this step of faith to, start this organization a couple of years ago. We were in Mattawa and Yakima in the Tri-Cities. We're actually, crazy enough, going to start a chapter in Maui. People there have reached out to us, and so we're going to do that. But all these things, there's a part where I get pretty nervous, I mean, we've got to get the money for it. We've got to get the people for it. But the opportunity is just great there. And I just hope that we as the church will really step up to this amazing opportunity and do it. And just, like you're saying, Tyler, I encourage everyone that you don't have to join Forge to be a mentor. You don't have to, join Forge to impact young people. Look in your neighborhoods. I mean, look in your family, your grandchildren, just cousins and kids that are around you. Spend the time to ask them how they're doing. And recently that's just come big to me. I've had a couple of my cousins, I end up seeing them and spent time with their kids. And all of a sudden that cousin who's not a believer reaches out to me and says, well, you seem so kind to the kids, and tell me more, and it's just been really amazing. And so just, and whether it's in the church, guys, I guarantee the children's and youth ministry are always looking for more adults.
Absolutely.
So, I want you where God wants you. I don't need, I'm not going to twist your arm to come into Forge. I just want to encourage you that, man, you've got so much life wisdom and experiences that it's going to help someone. Like, you're going to help someone that I can't help because of what you've been through and what you know. So just step out, listen to God, and have a fun time doing it. It really is cool.
That's what it's about, turning the hearts of the fathers and mothers to the sons and the daughters. So, Amen. Todd, thank you so much for leading the way on this. Thank you for joining us. Hoping, we'll have you back when we're back together in our building and gathering normally, whatever that is. And we'll get to keep this relationship going. So thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Tyler. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.
God bless. Have a good one.